And we are going over the monthly report. We are going over Q4 in general. Q4 is very important for us because it is the first full quarter of our strategy. It's the first full quarter of basically us being at full deployment with the metrics and policies that we have in place to really kind of push the protocol forward. And so that's stuff that's incredibly important for us when it comes to our plans for 2024, which we will talk about in a little bit. First, let's just kick off with the nerdy stuff. Michael's not here, so all the stuff that he helped Ian create, I'm going to butcher, but we're going to have this recording up for you guys hopefully by tomorrow, if not a little later in the early next week. And then we'll also share the DeFi Fund report with you in the same channel we share it every month. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Does it look good? Guess what, guys? We have a new updated design of the DeFi Fund report this month. Moving forward, we continue to try and optimize it a bit. My message to the team this past couple months is now that we have data, we have enough data that we have a trend. And now that we have a trend, we have a story. And so our purpose with the DeFi Fund report moving forward and our plans with the organization as a whole moving forward is to tell the story of our progress. And so we went through and we remixed the report a little bit. We still have all of the numbers and metrics at the end, but the first half of the report is going to be stuff that's more easily digestible, things that tell us where we were and where we are and the progress throughout. So without further ado, we'll get started. So this is the December Q4 breakdowns and growth for Stasis Network. BlockCentral trading as Stasis Network. We should clarify that the official organization is BlockCentral. Content, you don't need to worry about that because we're going to look at them all. Changing the game in DeFi. So this report provides a detailed overview of the protocol's health. As you guys know, we've had a general summary on every report thus far. At the end of the year, token price was 1.43 cents. Obviously, it's dipped a little since then because, frankly, the market's looking a little teeterish, waiting for ETF news, which we talked about earlier. Token market cap is a healthy 750,000. Again, market cap isn't a strong metric for a protocol like ours because we're constantly burning tokens, right? So it is something that we look at as a general metric, but it's not something that we worry ourselves too much with because ultimately, we are trying to burn as many tokens as possible. So if we reduce the token supply by 20%, naturally the market cap's going to reduce as we wait for supply shock and value increase over the long term. So it's just something that it's good to see. It's not necessarily the most important metric. I know a lot of other tokens that aren't deflationary, like most of your top 100 on the CMC, their market cap's an important metric to look at because you look at their inflation schedule, you look at their circulating supply versus total supply. All that stuff weighs in on the consideration of buying and holding one of those tokens. So ultimately, the most important takeaway from our first 6 months or so is we as a team believe that the protocol has been incredibly successful. Now, what we talked about last time and what I reiterate here is we walked into this with a hypothesis. We had an idea of how it would go. We had an idea of what we could accomplish. And a lot of those worked. Some of them didn't. And so our job as a team is to continually absorb data and adjust as we see fit based on the data that we're seeing, what it's telling us for the protocol, and frankly, the results of the things that we're trying to do to achieve that hypothesis. Do we prove our hypothesis correct or do we prove it false and we have to come up with a new hypothesis? And so we did that the first couple of months. And frankly, some of it worked, a lot of it didn't. So in mid-September, when we remixed the protocol, we changed our strategies. We made it more yield aggressive, and our focus became revenue generation. That's when our original hypothesis took on a new form, but it still achieved the same goal, which is bringing value to the holders, bringing value to the DeFi fund, and ultimately giving us an opportunity to begin to scale this operation into things that we consider more TradFi, less degen. Obviously, we love degens. We all come from a degen world. However, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that this organization grows beyond its current borders. And so that's part of this process of basically ideation and strategy discovery that we worked through the first 6 months has resulted in us entering into 2024 with an opportunity to scale the corporation or scale the organization. So the biggest takeaway throughout Q4, the Stasis token, STS, rose by 130% from October 1st to January 1st. That's fantastic. Obviously, the first 2 months or so set us back a little bit. Unfortunately, some people decided to leave us. Everybody has their own priorities. It's their prerogative. It's their money. They made those choices. We wish them well. But once we got our footing and we kind of started to, the ideas we had started to materialize in certain strategies, obviously things took off from there. So we're up 131% from October 1st to January 1st, which is huge for us. We got our circulating supply under 60 million by January 1st. That was a big goal of mine. That happened as well. And frankly, just a matter of managing the market as a whole, managing the fund and the strategies. Those things are all part of our day-to-day work. And so some notes of interest. We did some rebalancing at the beginning of the month to align with what we're trying to do from a risk management standpoint. We added some ETH positions on Eigen Layer, EtherFi, and KelpDAO. These are all things Michael brought to me as an opportunity to take advantage of the upcoming narrative for ETH over the next year. Michael is very confident that the Eigen Layer of ETH and the updates that are coming for the network are going to be a massive narrative in 2024, and he wanted exposure to that for the DeFi fund. I looked into it. I agreed. It's good to have that position. And frankly, we're just, the protocol and the DeFi fund as a whole is pretty ETH maxi-ish. ETH is just, it's a close second behind Bitcoin when it comes to dependability and security, and so we're comfortable having that level of exposure to ETH because it opens us up to all the other altcoins that ultimately flow back into ETH and Bitcoin. December, we saw a combined $80,000 in gains between yield and the fund's appreciation. So the fund started, I think the month started around 530,000. So 80,000 combined is 14%, right around there. As a percentage of October 1 balance, the fund returned 23% in yield in Q4. So 23% times 4, 92%. So essentially our fund, not counting appreciation, our fund projected over a year would be 92% APR. And so that's huge. It's not like we're gambling on Ponzi's. It's not like we're giving up custody of the funds to somebody else. This is us self-custody, managing the funds appropriately with a decent amount of risk management. And it has resulted in, 23, almost 24% yield in 1 quarter, extrapolated over 12 months. That's a pretty damn good return for something that isn't dependent upon inflation, that isn't dependent upon any Ponzi-nomics where we're worried about new money coming in to take care of old money. This is simply a matter of us putting ourselves in a position to take advantage of essentially trading fees. You know, there's other platforms that are in the works. We talk about Foxify because they're part of our portfolio and we're closely connected with them. They're building their own platform to gain revenue off trading fees. We're utilizing Uniswap to gain revenue off trading fees. So we still have access to a significant chunk of revenue that is not generated by the protocol itself. Now, we do have the buy and sell taxes that generate a decent amount of protocol revenue, but it's not something that we take into consideration when we're talking about the direct performance of the DeFi fund and their underlying assets. So we try to keep those two separate because what we are doing is, again, we're taking this and we're scaling it to a client services side that they don't care about a token. They won't be involved in the token, but all of the fees from that management side flows back to the protocol. So it's very important for us from a scaling standpoint. And finally, we broke $100,000 in yield overall. And in Q4, we had a total of $103,000 in yield just managing the fund as we do, which is huge. So again, extrapolate that over 12 months. It's a little over $400,000. We started with a little under 500,000. So again, this 85% APR. Again, that's real revenue that's generated from providing liquidity, concentrated liquidity, the way we are, plus other allocations that resulted in us being in this position. So, cool. Moving on. So again, we talk about building out a story of our strategy and the protocol and what we're trying to do with it. So December's yield generation was $35,672. That is significantly higher than October's, which was $26,500. It's a little lower than November's $41,800. However, it's still, we show a general trend of progression, moving upward. And a big part of this actually is most people spent December playing on Solana and airdrop farming. There wasn't a lot of DeFi volume from a trading standpoint. You know, a lot of people were playing in very specific niches, which took a lot of volume and thus trading revenue, trading fees away from some of your mainstream DeFi networks. And so to achieve 35,000 with all of that going on, that took away from our core market specifically, is a pretty big success. I think if we didn't have that whole narrative play out during the month of December, we probably would be closer to the November number, honestly. And so still, it was a very solid month for us. We had $103,000 in yield for Q4. The DeFi fund value was up to $548,000. December's yield is 6.6%. So you can see we're starting a new narrative with our yield. You know, so this will turn into an average as we grow the strategies, as we expand our earning potential, and then we can actually start to tell this story over a longer basis than just one quarter. I'm going to stop, see if there's any questions. Oh, Foxy85. So I'll go into that part of it a little bit more once we're done with the report. I feel like it's important to talk about, but what Aquestical is saying is pretty straightforward. You know, it's all right, Crypto Penguin. That is funny though. All right, moving on. So total revenue since we started. There's two parts of this that I want to talk about. It's a simple page, but it's important. So total revenue or total yield generated since inception was $133,000, which is great, but it also tells a different story. We generated 103,000 of that 133,000 in the last quarter. So the first 2.5 months of the protocol was only $30,000 in yield. So you can see from our perspective, what that change in strategy did for the protocol. So if 103 of that 133 came from the last 3 months alone, that means what we've been doing the last 3 months has greatly impacted the organization as a whole. And so that's something that now we've found most of our story. Now we've found most of our strategy. We can build on it. We can adapt to it. We can expand on it. And then constantly just keeping an eye on the market to allow ourselves to put the DeFi fund and the protocol overall in positions of earning consistent and strong revenue without putting ourselves at any additional risk. So we've had moments in the last 3 months where people would ask us, do you have any exposure to this asset? Do you have any exposure to that asset? And it was usually while that asset was doing, 50%, 100%, 150%, 500%. And the answer was no. And it wasn't because we had any personal vendettas against that asset or we felt like we missed it. It was also, it's just a matter of, risk management, and there are going to be times, especially in this market, especially the demographic of a lot of us having been in this space a long time, you're going to see times where something will 5x and you're going to come to us and be like, why didn't you guys have any of that? And the answer is going to be the same. And the answer is always going to be, we have a strategy, we have risk management parameters, and we are managing other people's money. And so there are going to be perceived opportunity costs from time to time within the protocol and the strategy that we use. But for us, we are doing it in a way where we feel like we're safe from any significant losses. So there were a couple meme coins where people were like, oh, it would have been nice if you guys grabbed a bag of this or a bag of that. Like, yeah, we could have spent 5,000 or 10,000 on that, and it could have turned into 2,000 or it could have turned into 200,000. You just don't know. And for us, when you're managing other people's capital in this sense as part of a fund, we just can't take those risks. And so, but also, our narrative has always been slow and steady over the long term. And we've always had our eye on how do we attract TradFi capital and how do we attract crypto curious people, which we talked about from day one, since May 15th, when we went public. We talked about TradFi and crypto curious. And so will us degens, which we all admit and openly embrace as part of our identity within crypto, are we individuals excited about 60 to 80% APR? Most of us aren't. However, everybody that I know that's in TradFi and everybody else that I know who manages strictly traditional investments only, they get very excited about the idea of making anything above 20%, let alone anywhere near 60 to 80%. So that's our target market when it comes to scaling the organization. That's why our focus is so strong on making sure everything we're doing is sustainable and risk adverse, because ultimately, if we can attract $5-10 million worth of capital under management, that's going to do more for everybody involved in the organization than another $100,000 or $200,000 of degen money that's looking for 4-figure APYs. So it's something to keep in mind. Moving on, fund diversification. We talk about this all the time. Just a general visual of all the different things that the fund is in. From big to small: Bitcoin, ETH, Optimism, Pendle, Arbitrum, Lido, FXS. We have a little bit in Rollbit. We have Link. We have SNX. You can see all this on the fund. This is, I don't think any of these have changed significantly from the last report, other than the EtherFi, KelpDAO, and Eigen Layer. And then at the beginning of the year, we added another CLP position of Matic ETH on Uniswap, but on the Polygon network. And last time I checked it was, I think, close to 100% APR since we launched it. So another healthy CLP that, Matic's strong from a layer 2. ETH is ETH, obviously. So we were happy to add that and to get a little bit more exposure to ETH, or get a little bit more exposure to Matic without carrying too much between the LPs and the DeFi fund. I think Rollbit is just one of those things that crypto and gambling have always been very closely related, and I think that'll stay that way. I think at the end of the day, gambling's not a bad thing. It's just something that needs to be managed, and from an organizational standpoint, it's just a matter of how do you do that in the most responsible way possible. So Rollbit's just filling a demand within the market, and the way that their tokenomics work, the fact that they buy back and burn so many tokens consistently, it is something that I think Gamblify, it might cool off for a little while, pick back up, cool off, pick back up. But I think with the way their mechanics work, it is something that I would not be surprised if Rollbit was $1 or more by the end of the year or going into 2025. So it's just something that I think as more capital and liquidity flows into the market, it's just a matter of where it goes and who's using it. So if a lot of normies or newbies come into the market, it is something that I think will help us a lot. But at the end of the day, we're diversified. We have 20 positions or so. We're always looking to add one or two more, but we're pretty selective about it. And then we're always monitoring these positions as they come and go. So it's important. Token dynamics, supply, burn, and distribution. This is another one that I really like. On the left side is the STS token, circulating supply NFT contract, protocol owned and amount burned. As you can see, we don't own any tokens, and we've burned most of them. I think about 70%. I think about 70% of the tokens have been burned. And Equestical, that's actually exactly what it's like. For Michael and I, we've said this before. Michael and I talk about probably 3 or 4 times a day. We exchange messages several times a day. And it's almost always stuff like that. Colin's talking about ALMs. So Michael and I have discussed using something like Aperture. They've probably been the one that we personally like the best. However, we don't want smart contract exposure and risk. So Equestical, no, we had nothing on Gamma or anything like that. So we didn't have to worry about that exploit. But when it comes to ALMs and like, for example, Aperture, so basically we wanted to minimize our risk. And so the way we did that is it's like, all right, we're manually managing and we're interacting directly with only blue chip platforms. Yes, I know. I know, Colin, you mentioned before, like, things happen even to blue chips like Curve and some of these other ones. So there's always risk, right? Risk is never zero. So all we can do is manage risk down to a point where we feel like we've done everything we can and we have systems in place to make sure that we're not opening ourselves up to any potential issues. So. And then on the right side, you have the essentially the breakdown of capital within the protocol. Again, this is something that we love to show because it shows you, the users, 80%, essentially 80% of all the capital in the protocol is in the DeFi fund. And in fact, actually, the operational balances, the 1.3, most of that was from the hoard boxes, which directly contributed to the new Matic CLP position. So we would move that 1.3 into the 79.2. So really, we're at like 80.5% of the capital within the protocols in the DeFi fund, and everything else is providing liquidity, whether it's seeds in the farm or whether it's like the seed LP or farm contributions. We did take a little bit out of the farm to help boost the APYs a little bit on the Matic farm. Other than that, we also play with the farm transfer. And so from time to time, I know FIP and I think Ian 321, not our Ian, will comment on the fact that the protocol farms switched, and that's us kind of looking at the market and going, all right, we're going to push $10,000 or $20,000 into STS Plus farm from Matic because Matic's looking a little toppish. So you'll see that happen from time to time, but that's us again, just managing the protocol's capital as efficiently as possible. So, all right, moving on. Growth against the market. So we have some numbers here that essentially we can talk through them, but they're all connected. So on the far left side is the real fund value increase in Q4. So that is the DeFi funds real value increase in Q4 from beginning to end, counting appreciation and revenue. So starting in Q4, ending January 1st, the DeFi fund itself increased 26.38% cumulatively in that time. Now, that doesn't mean that's all of our revenue, because what do we do with revenue? We take a lot of that and we push it to the market, right? So as you can see, in Q4, Ethereum went up 40%, Matic went up 90%, Stasis went up 131%. That's a pretty consistent spread between the three. But all of them build on top of each other to show you that we took a lot of those gains from that 26% and we pushed them to Stasis to help the market for Stasis. So that's an important visual for you guys to see not only the growth of the core funds and the revenue, but where that revenue is flowing. So if we would have been, say, plus 60% against Matic, that would have told you like we probably had more sellers than buyers in that quarter, or it's just the market overall just wasn't cooperating with us from a Stasis standpoint. But for us, with this visual, it shows you a direct line between our value against Matic, which we're paired against ETH, which is its L1. So this is an important visual for you guys to see how we grow against the market and how we use the market to our advantage to grow the token's value. And so moving on, this is the numbers part. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is the traditional report that we usually have. Key takeaways for us are, these are all our positions. A lot of them are going to be similar to last month's report. We try not to make too many adjustments. There's a difference between managing and micromanaging in the CLP game and in just investments in general. Now, I know Austin's in the audience, and Austin does a lot of day trading. Obviously, micromanagement is the name of the game. With this, micromanagement can sometimes bite you in the ass, so we have to be careful about how we go about it, and there's a level of patience within this type of investment management. And so a lot of these positions are going to be relatively the same. At the bottom of the screen, you can see here the overall value change from the beginning of the month to the end of the month was that 80,000 that we mentioned before. So that's where that number comes from. So that's the total delta value change of the strategies in the fund. So the allocations, again, these are the allocations for the entire fund broken down by percentage. Bitcoin ETH at the top naturally, and then we have our different L2s, OP and ARB. We have Link, we have Pendle, SNX, Radiant, Lido. I know Radiant had an exploit a couple days ago. Colin tipped me off to that, which I appreciate. It was only 5 million, I think, and then they handled it very quickly and professionally. So Radiant's market didn't budge at all. In fact, I think it went up. So I think there was an additional layer of confidence built into that particular asset because of the way they handled that little exploit that they had there. FXS, a little bit of roll bit. Trading allocation continues to perform well, right around 6% a month. We're probably going to take profit from that one again. So we took profit from the trading allocation about 3 months ago. I think at the beginning of October 1st, it was about $7,500. We brought that back to the market. And actually, no, I think it was November 1st. Yeah, 7,500, right around there. And so we'll probably take profit on that one again at the end of this upcoming month. Yeah, but so far, that's $25,000. It's returned back to us, 7,500. And then, so far we've been happy with that allocation and it's worked out well. We have GMX, and then our new little allocations, Eigen Layer, EtherFi, KelpDAO, and then we do have the EB Fox there still as part of our allocation. Operational assets, this isn't one that I focus on too much because it says negative 25,000. That's really not what it is. It's just a matter of we had funds sitting outside of the DeFi fund, and then now they're in positions. So this negative 25,000 just telling you that operational assets from the beginning of December moved from sitting idle to into positions. So the big change is number 7 USDC, negative 27,000. That's because we had sitting 27,000 idle, and then we moved it into positions. That's the only reason why it says negative 25,000. The big one here is the metrics, DeFi Fund metrics. Beginning of the month, 492,000. End of the month, 548,000. Total yield was 35. Total monthly P&L was 55. So we yielded 35, and then we had another $20,000 in appreciation, not counting the capital we spent on buybacks and burns, right? So like our big focus in December was buyback and burn, get us under 60 million. We were pretty aggressive about that in November and December. And so we did a good job of making sure not only did we spend all that capital buyback and burning, but the fund and the revenue were still stayed in the black. So we did both very well through November and December. Treasury allocations, again, this is just a total number. Total treasury value is 691, which is up from 637. So that's where the 58, I can't math right now, 55,000 comes from this value right here. 55,000 is coming from this right here. Again, operational and LP allocations, negative 1,500. It's marginal at most. And then protocol metrics, we talk about market cap, circulating market cap. Both of them increased over the month of December due to the token increasing. Treasury as well. The big one that I like to look at on this is the LP treasury ratio, LP market cap ratio. So if you were to look at 7 and 8 here, LP market cap ratio and backing LP market cap ratio. That's the full market cap. It's 31% LP to market cap, and then 15% backing LP. So backing LP literally is just the LP half that's blue chip, whether it's STS Plus or Matic. And so because Stasis is paired with those, that's the true backing value of each of those LPs. It's important to have that number above 10%. We're at 15%. If you were to look at circulating market cap, which is 9 and 10, it's actually 20%. So those are extremely healthy LP numbers. No honeypotting happening here. Anything above 10% is healthy when it comes to AMMs and general DeFi tokens across the board. I'm going to stop for a second, see if there's any questions. I don't see any, so I'm going to move on. I think we're pretty much wrapping up here. Last thing on the side is token supply and burns. December 1st, we were at 79 million total supply, and we ended at 75.9 total supply. Circuit supply, like I said, got below 60,000 or 60 million. We started at 62.4. So basically, during the month of December, we burned another 2.5 million tokens from the total supply, which is like 3.5%, which is huge. But we did burn, so we burned a total of 3.2 million tokens for the month. But again, the NFT contract's always releasing tokens. So that's something that there's that emission rate from tokens, but it's not as high as our burn rate, obviously. So it's something that we do take pride in the fact that despite the NFTs, those tokens are paid for. There's a cost basis associated with them. You guys bought the NFTs; those are your tokens. They get emitted over the lifetime of the NFT contract. And there's always the redemption feature of the NFT. If you ever need access to that capital, if you need access to liquid capital, it's there for you, so you don't feel like you're locked into the NFT. But it is something that even though we have that small emission from the NFTs, we still burn a significant amount of tokens. So we burned 3.2 million this last month. And then just general, we try to keep track of our market and OTC token buys. We do offer OTC services. It's part of the white paper. We had 3 people approach us last month in November. We had 3 people approach us this month in December for OTC selling back to the protocol. We had the capital on hand. We had the metrics that we wanted when it came to our revenue and profitability. And so we were able to pull that off for them. So market purchases, we bought almost $23,000 off the market. We bought another 16,500 OTC. So we spent about 39,000 on token buybacks last month. November, we spent almost 51,000 on buybacks. But again, both of those were aggressive marches toward getting below 60 million circulating supply. So that is the fund overall. As always, we always list the wallet addresses. The multi-sig is not as active other than holding LPs for the protocol. The most active wallet is the Ops DeFi One wallet that ends in 4BA7. You'll see a lot of activity on the market. We do a lot of arbitrage between the two LPs, market buybacks on the LPs. Sometimes if Matic will move a couple percentage points, I'll do a small purchase to make sure that our market stays in parity with Matic. Just little things like that. You'll see most of the activity will come from these top 2 wallets. The bottom 3 ops wallets are mostly dormant. A small amount of activity, but a vast majority of our activity will come from the top two wallets. So I think that is it for the fund report. That is your December Q4 DeFi Fund report. Let's see here. What would price be with circulating supply below 60K? Oh my God. So basically, what would it be if we burned 99% of the existing supply? It would be a lot higher. Like if all the metrics stayed the same, right? So like if the fund value stayed the same and the revenues stayed the same, but we only had 60,000 tokens, I mean, that would put the backing value alone of each token at $10. You know, because like if the treasure value right now is like 690,000, right? So we're making up from that fall dip in the loss in value from the first couple of months. So we're making our way back up from that. And so like it's at 690,000. If we had 60,000 tokens, yeah, the backing value for those tokens just from the fund's value would be $11. 11.33. So that would be the baseline price for the token, I think. So, which actually makes sense. Like if we're at like 1.2 cents right now, and you do 100x, like if you cut the supply by 99%, the value should 100x, right? So yeah, that would make the most sense from a value standpoint. Important question today is, can a great defense stop the best offense? Oh, all right. I don't know if you guys know this. Some of you don't care. But American college football, the championship game is coming up on the 8th. It is my Michigan Wolverines against Brent's Washington Huskies. I like to call them the Washington puppies, but it's fine. Um, Michigan's defense is tops in the country. Washington's offense is one of the tops in the country. I'll tell you right now, I'll give it to you. Michael Penix Jr. looks like an NFL quarterback. I don't know why everybody's talking about Drake May and Caleb Williams when Michael Penix looks like somebody you could plug and play in any NFL offense and he'd probably look good. In fact, do you know who the greatest left-handed NFL quarterback in history is? Anybody? I'll give you 30 seconds. Boom. Thank you, Crypto Penguin. I knew if CP was here, he would have that answer. I don't know if Kenny is the right choice there. You could make an argument for Michael Vick, but Michael Vick did not win Super Bowls. Okay, so Steve Young is the correct answer. In fact, Crypto Penguin, thank you for answering that question. I'm going to give you one of today's giveaways for answering that question. All right. All right. Before we wrap this up, a couple future updates. So we've been hinting at this for a while, but it's nice to talk about it explicitly. So we're not trying to obfuscate or hide what we're doing. We are looking and working on expanding BlockCentral. So BlockCentral is our parent company. It is the thing that we run all of our operations through. We have the organization set up in Panama. We have legal counsel. We have business development guys. There's 3 guys in Panama that we work with directly on a regular basis. In fact, Barry had a call with our counsel this morning discussing the idea of our what we call yield as a service. We call it YAS because it's funny. It's not like the official name, but it's something that we call like we yeah, if you think about it, it's a very sassy way of saying yes. So it's not the official name. It's a way for us to take our strategy and what we've built out and the plans we have for it in the future and scale it with more capital. And so that's the plan for 2024. So people ask us, what's next for Stasis? Well, what's next for Stasis is BlockCentral. And so what we're doing is we're taking what we've done the last 3 months and what we've built and what we will continue to do with the fund over the next several months and years, and we're turning it into a client services business. This is us fulfilling the TradFi goal that we had at the very, very beginning. And so a big key for us is we have all these contacts in Panama. Panama is a financial hub for the Americas, let alone around the world. And there's a significant network within our Rolodex there that has capital that would love access to anywhere from 40 to 60% APR a year. And so Barry had a call today. It went very well. He did the call with one of our other guys last week. Went very well. They're kind of getting FOMO. So we're trying to move quickly on this where we have capital from them. We manage it the same way we manage the DeFi fund. Secure, safe, risk adverse. And we take a fee. And so right now, that fee is right around 25% performance, 25% appreciation. So I'm just spitballing here, but that's the number that we fell on. There's no management fee. So we make money when they make money. So that's the thing that we felt was fairest. So the way it would work is whatever revenue they earn throughout the month, we have a 25% performance fee. And then any appreciation of that capital under management, we have a 25% appreciation fee when they decide to depart the fund. So let's say, for example, someone were to put $100,000 into a fund. Again, this is only for high value clients. This is something that we're looking for quality over quantity. So when it comes to the minimum contribution, it's probably going to be 100,000 or more. So the last thing we want to do is put ourselves in a position where it's client services for most of our job. Most of our job should be managing money, not managing clients. And so if we can build a client list 20, 30 people deep, nothing big, but something worth our time. Say, for example, again, somebody puts in $100,000 into a fund. That fund earns 7% a month on average. That is $7,000. We would get 25% of that $7,000 monthly. And so as that fund grows, let's say that fund, they have that fund with us for 12 months, that $100,000 becomes, say, $300,000, and they decide to leave, we get 25% of the difference. So $200,000, 25% is $50,000. So we would get a lump sum when they departed from the fund. So it is something that, from a long range standpoint, knowing what market we're going into over the next 2 years, knowing what we have planned outside of just the CLP positions, it's not the only thing that we have planned or we're working on. Knowing all of that and the network that we have access to, both in Panama and some other areas around the world, we're pretty confident that over the first half of 2024, we can build out a sizable portfolio of client managed funds. And again, all of those fees come back to Stasis, come back to BlockCentral, which means all of that benefits you either directly or indirectly as basically the original contributors to the organization. And so obviously I have deferred all of my salary and recovering my build costs from the original startup of Stasis. So at some point I need to pay myself, but this is far more important for us from an organizational standpoint. And so, so as we get this off the ground, it'll be an opportunity for myself to take a small salary to start, and then we can build from there. But Barry and I are super excited about the idea of taking essentially what we have, a proof of concept, which we did with the fund and the token and everything, and now we can expand it and scale it into a independent client services operation that benefits the entire organization directly, which is really cool. So that's the idea. That's the plan. We're working on it actively right now. We have legal counsel working on contracts, which we should be getting a draft of them next week to review. It's going to be as official as possible. Clients will KYC through a company in Panama connected to our company, third party. And then obviously it's going to be something that we go through and we make the most possible for ourselves and for the organization. And so if I don't know if there's any questions, I've just kind of been talking. CP, it is something that this has all been timed. We launched Stasis at a time where we knew 6 to 12 months after we launched, it would be optimal for us to begin to scale outside of just a token. And so we felt like we launched at the right time. I know Colin jokingly said we probably could have raised $10 million if we would have launched now versus 6 months ago. But it gave us an opportunity to experiment without the pressure of such a large liability. That's what it is. The token is an IOU. It's a liability. And our job when we're buying back and burning is taking those liabilities off the table, right? And so so it is something that when we were discussing this in our long range goal for the organization, it was give us time to prove the concept, and then we can scale once we have that proof. And yeah, we had our hypotheses at the beginning, and some of them worked and some of them didn't, but we've been able to refine and grow, and now we're to the point where we have data that is irrefutable, that proves what we're doing works. Now, again, somebody mentioned earlier about ALMs, and it doesn't work for us because we're full-time. Barry's full-time stasis in BlockCentral. I'm full-time stasis in BlockCentral. When Michael's not working, he's always has an eye on the market for us. So he's part-time. Ian's part-time. Brent's part-time. And so you have multiple eyes on this from an organizational standpoint. And so so this has always been the goal for us, is to scale in the TradFi direction. Now, regulation is always a conversation. That's something that we've already had an eye on. I know Barry, 1 second. Of course, Barry's messaging me while I'm talking. So we've always had an eye on regulation. Someone else said, at some point you're going to have to choose whether you're going to be a pirate or you're going to be a professional. And so at some point, organizations and governments are going to make crypto one or the other. Like, you're going to have to choose. And so for us, we've always chosen the light over the dark. You know what I mean? Like, we've always chosen like transparency and trying to be as official as possible. So, so with our council, we are in the process of having a draft of a compliance manual if we need it. Currently, Panama as a country has no opinion on crypto. It is something that they haven't. They have, frankly, they have other things going on. But as a financial hub, they haven't found any need to restrict or regulate or define it that would take business away from their country, which is good for us as an organization because that's where we operate out of. Now, when it comes to our clients, there's a reason why we're focused on Panama for our clients. Because if our clients are coming from Panama, a majority of them, and we're operating out of Panama, then we don't have any regulatory scrutiny as an organization. And then if Panama does decide at some point to define and regulate crypto in some way, whether it's just simply a matter of taxes, we'll have a compliance manual ready to go for the country as needed. So there's all things that we're looking forward to. But that's the plan. That's 2024 for us. Does that mean less fun stuff, like not focusing on the clans in the Discord server? Yes, but I think for you guys, do you care about that as much as you do making money? I think most of us care about making money first, and the rest is fun, but the money comes first. And so for us as an organization, we're focused on this ability to scale. So the DeFi Fund is great at its current level, making 6 to 9% a month. But if we can have triple or quadruple that number coming in from client fees a month as well, what does that do for the DeFi Fund and ultimately the Stasis token? So that is something to consider when it comes to our focus as a team. Is if we build out this the way we want, the client revenue will be large enough that not only will Stasis as an organization be taken care of, we'll probably be able to remove buy and sell taxes. We'll probably be able to simplify the organization from a tokenomics standpoint, where it's almost a direct line between you guys and revenue. And so there's a lot of things that we can potentially do with the protocol when we get to a point where client revenue is to a level that we no longer need protocol revenue. Protocol revenue right now is a nice buffer from us from a taxes standpoint. It kind of safeguards us from any major pain when there is a bit of a sell-off. But when we get to a point where client revenue is higher, we won't need protocol revenue, and it won't dictate the strength or weakness of the organization overall. So it's really important. Other than that, I talked for a full hour. It's 12 o'clock here on the West Coast, 12 noon. It is Friday. I don't want to take up any more of your guys' time. I hope the monthly report, the new design, was pleasing from the eyes. We'll keep working on providing digestible information for people. And then I hope you're excited for 2024 because we are. I know from Barry and I being kind of the heads of the organization, we're extremely excited about what is. Oh my God! Look at all you guys, West Coasters. I know from our standpoint, for Barry and I being the key stakeholders in the organization, and it all falls on us. It is very important for us to execute what we have planned and what we're building coming into 2024. But it is something that, as we move through this process, Barry and I will most likely be traveling to Panama multiple times over the next 6 months. We're already jokingly lining up golf trips with certain clients, whatever it takes, right? So it is something that I think at the end of the day, there's a direct line between TradFi Capital and BlockCentral. We just need to build the road. And that's what we're doing right now with our council. That's what we're doing right now with the data that we can provide. Other than that, I think I'm good. It is past the hour. I hope you guys all have guys and gals, I hope you all have a great day. I hope you have a great weekend. Happy New Year. Whatever resolutions you made, or you're not a resolution person, whatever it is, I hope everyone's healthy. I hope everyone's happy. And we will talk to you guys again soon.